Hi, everybody. Through faith, we experience the world. Through action, we give the world meaning. This is a quote from Leo Beck, The Essence of Judaism. Dear Arya, I'm writing to you during Elul. This is the month before Rosh Hashanah that provides us Jews with an opportunity to reflect on our past year and make commitments to do some things differently in the coming year. Arya, you were playing with your magnetic shul set this past Kabbalat Shabbat as we both sang and I played guitar on Shari Tikva's Zoom. You know most of the songs I sing, and Rabbi Scott and the congregants love seeing and hearing you. You delighted in finding a magnet that looks like Rabbi Scott. You asked me, Booby, what is this? And what is this? And what is this? And I explained, that's an art cover for the High Holy Days, and the round challah is for holidays, and that's a Torah. What's a Torah, you asked? Well, let me tell you. We have the Torah that is written on a scroll, and within its writings, we find a roadmap for living our Jewish lives. We also have the Torah that is taught to us by our family. Each week, when we light the Shabbat candles, I always say, we light these candles for the generations past, the generations now, that's us, you, me, and Daddy, and for the generations yet to come. You, dear Arya, are responsible for the generations yet to come. Now I will acquaint you with the generations past and some of the lessons I've learned. I've learned about the value of family from my grandma and grandpa, my dad, Aunt Hilda, and Aunt Jean. Grandma, Aunt Jean, and then my dad always hosted Jewish holiday meals. Aunt Hilda researched and wrote our fish family history going all the way back to the year 1040 without the internet. We have lots of rabbis in our family. We come from a Hasidic dynasty. And the rabbis that we're related to include Rashi, Rabbi Zvi Elimelech, and actually there's many Rabbi Zvi Elimelechs in our family tree. My grandfather, who, with his brother Max, went to Poland in the 1920s and in 1930 to bring back relatives while pogroms were brewing before World War II. On their first visit to Poland, they brought back 42 relatives. The youngest was only 4 months old. Imagine, all for family. I learned resilience from my grandmother when in 1941, Grandpa died at age 53, and she took over running the fish dry cleaning and linen supply business, all the while staying active in her Jewish causes. I learned faith from my grandmother's parents, Mildred and Yankel. They had their picture taken in a photo studio in Aishashuk around 1900. They sent the picture to family who had come to America earlier. On the back of the picture, inscribed in Yiddish, it says, quote, "We have fulfilled, with God's help, your wish, but with great effort did it come about. Before we travel, we wish you a year of life and peace. Kesiva v'chach tova." It's signed Yankel Karklinski. Wait a second. Grandma's maiden name is Brynna. This is a probable Ellis Island name change. This picture hangs in my library music room where I am now. It's also in the Tower of Life photos in the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and in a book called There Once Was a World, a 900-year chronicle of the shtetl of Aishashuk by Yafa Eliach. I learned the commitment to synagogue from my grandma and grandpa Fish because they founded the first conservative shul in Youngstown, Ohio. When I got my driver's license, I loved getting to pick Grandma up, bring her home for Shabbat dinner, and then take her to services every Friday evening. I learned about the value of participating in Jewish community, seeing dedication plaques at the JCC honoring the contributions they made there, and learning that Grandma started the Youngstown chapter of Hadassah in 1914. I learned tolerance and acceptance from that same grandmother when she scolded my dad for refusing to let my older first cousin Robert come with his boyfriend for a holiday in 1975. Grandma made my dad call Robert back, apologize, and invite him to bring his partner David, which he did. I learned about Zionism from my grandparents' efforts to raise funds for the founding of the State of Israel. I have plaques honoring them from Jewish National Fund, Hebrew University, ZOA, and more. My Aunt Jean, who lived to be 96, told the story that when she was a teenager, the family drove to Toronto to visit one of Grandma's relatives, Uncle Archie. They arrived later than planned. Grandpa wanted to arrive before Shabbat. That didn't happen, so we parked the car a few blocks away from the house. Grandma turns to Grandpa and says, "Dave, what do you think they're going to think? That we walked all the way from Youngstown?" Grandpa simply wanted to be respectful of their Shabbat observance. One more story. I learned a sense of humor and commitment to Judaism from my grandfather's brother, Max. I have copies of letters that he and my grandfather wrote from the fish dry cleaning business in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. Anybody remember carbon paper? Leighton Rosenthal, who owned a uniform business in Cleveland, wrote to Max Fish just a few months after I was born in 1957. Leighton was asking for a reference for a gentleman who used to work for the Fish Linen Supply Company. Max wrote back, I'm quoting, "Since it is right after Yom Kippur, and I hope the Almighty has forgiven me for all the sins I have committed during this past year, I will speak no evil. I hope you understand." End of quote. I use that line a lot. It helps me not speak lashon hara, badly of another. As I move through Elul, I've been thinking about the deep connections I have to Judaism, how I got them, and how I can pass them on. I have pictures and letters galore, but without the stories that convey the passionate influence of how Judaism weaves it all together, I'm afraid our generations past, which will one day include me and your father, our legacy will be lost. Once in a while I say to Shia something about how he's going to get all of this, and that I'm aware it's both a blessing and a burden. A good burden, I hope. Reams of letters, some in Yiddish, file drawers of news clippings, J&F certificates of groves and forests, Grandma and Grandpa Fish's U.S. naturalization papers, and books from Grandpa's extensive library, and more. My generation moved away from Youngstown, spread out geographically and with different levels of engagement in our legacy. So how will we pass it on? This letter to you, Aria, is the first of what I'm calling Dear Future Brynna and Fish Letters, cousins writing the stories that we remember. So how will you pass on your Jewish legacy? I ask Aria, and I ask all of you. I hope by turning your faith into action. Thank you.